Hello guys, this is the next video that we have on rates and unit rates, and we're going to be dealing with some specific word problems that were challenging for you guys. So let's quickly review how the last video ended. We ended on this particular slide where I told you that the way that you're going to write a rate is money goes on top, time goes on bottom, and if you do not have either one of these elements, whatever they give you first is on top, and whatever they give you second goes on bottom. And these were the three examples that we had. 6 calculators cost $160, so you would put this on top because we do have an element of money. And the 6 calculators would go on bottom. Also take note how everything has a label. This is very important when writing rates and then converting them to proportions. We now have 60 miles on 6 gallons of gas, so 90 miles would go over the 6 gallons. 12 inches of snow in 9 hours. We have the element of time in hours, so we would write it like this. Now we're going to dive right into solving for a unit rate. And we learned by our vocabulary that a unit rate is a rate simplified down to where your bottom number always equals 1 because a unit equals 1. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write our original rate for this particular phrase. $13 for 8 books. Well, we have an element of money, so that has to go on top. $13 on top over 8 books. This is the rest of our skeleton proportion to where in order to find our unit rate, we need a 1 on bottom over here. And since you've learned that our labels have to match exactly, that means you're going to find out how much am I going to pay for 1 book. So right over here I'm going to do my math. $13 divided by 8. I'm going to do this pretty quickly because you guys know how to do long division. And we're going to stop right there on 3 decimal places. Since we're dealing with money and money has 2 decimal places, we need to decide, is that 2 going to become a 3 or stay a 2? And because this is a 5, that's going to change that to a 3. So our unit rate is going to end up being $1.63 for 1 book. That's how we solve that unit rate. Now let's do our second one. If we have 90 miles on 6 gallons of gas, we do not have money, we do not have time, so whatever they gave us first goes on top. Whatever they gave us second goes on bottom. We're going to do the rest of our skeleton proportion. We're going to make our labels match exactly. And we need to find out how many miles can I go on 1 gallon. Well, in order to go from 6 down to 1, I have to divide by 6 on both sides. So up at the top, I'm also going to divide by 6. Over here, I'll do my math. 90 divided by 6. Oops, and see, I just made a mistake. That should be a 5. And we have a 0 remainder. So this means we're going to be able to travel 15 miles on 1 gallon of gas. That's how we solve for simple unit rates. Now let's dive into some word problems that have really been tripping y'all up. This Ferris wheel one really seems to be an issue. And the reason why I think it's the biggest issue is because they're giving us different units. We're starting off with minutes. We then have hours, and we have to convert these minutes and hours into each other and then go back to hours to find our unit rate. So let's look at this one. This says a Ferris wheel can accommodate 60 people in 30 minutes. How many people could ride the Ferris wheel in 6 hours? Well, since these go together, this is going to be our initial rate. 60 people over 30 minutes. We have to make sure our labels match exactly. They cannot be in different units. And because we had a unit of time, it goes on bottom. Okay, well now look. This says minutes and this says minutes, but we weren't given minutes again. We were given 6 hours. We can't have that because this can't be a 6 because that would not make it proportional. So we have to convert 6 hours into however many minutes that it is. That means we're going to have to do 6 times 60, which equals 360. So this is going to be 360 minutes, and we need to figure out how many people can fit into that. So now we have the challenge of figuring out how we're going to solve this proportion. Well, we can do it a couple different ways, but you guys seem to like going side to side instead of up and down more, and so I'm going to do it this way. What do I have to do to 30 to make it become 360? I'm going from a little number to a big number, and I have to multiply times 12. If I do that to the bottom, I have to do the exact same thing to the top. And I get 720. So to answer this first question, 720 people can ride the Ferris wheel in 6 hours. Because 6 hours equals to 360 minutes. The second question we have to answer is, what was that rate, meaning this, per hour? So we have to come over here and do 720 people in 6 hours, and we have to figure out how many people does that mean can ride in 1 hour, because a unit rate has 1 on the bottom always. Well, to go from a big number of 6 down to a little number of 1, I have to divide both the top and the bottom by 6. And I get 120. So in 1 hour, 120 people can ride the Ferris wheel. That's how we're going to solve that word problem. If you need to slow this down or rewind it, feel free to do so. Now we're going to do the next problem. This one is where we're looking for the better buy. We're going to solve for both unit rates and then compare between the two stores. This says I can buy 3 apples at the Quick Market for $1.20, or I can buy 5 of the same apples at Stop and Save for $2.35. Well, I'm going to have to find my unit rate for the Quick Market, and I'm going to have to find my unit rate for the Stop and Save. I know that money always goes on top, so that's going to be my initial rate. Here's the rest of my skeleton. The top label has to be money. The bottom label has to be apples. I want to know how much money am I spending for 1 apple. I'm going from 3 to 1, so I have to divide by 3. $1.20 divided by 3 means I'm going to spend 40 cents per apple at the Quick Market. Now let's do the Shop and Save. Stop and Save. Hello, tongue-tied. Stop and Save. I'm going to spend $2.35 for 5 apples at that store. That's my initial rate because that is what goes together. Let's finish the skeleton of our proportion. Our labels have to match exactly. I want to know how much am I going to pay for 1 apple. Well, I'm going from 5 down to 1, and so I'm going to have to divide by 5. So I'm going to do the exact same thing to the top. This says I'm going to end up spending 47 cents for an apple at Stop and Save. So which one has the better buy? It's not the price they're asking for, it asks for which place. So my answer is going to be the Quick Market, because 40 cents an apple is cheaper than 47 cents an apple. It's a better buy. Okay, the last one that we're going to look at quickly is one on gas mileage. This first sentence explains to you what gas mileage is. And then it's going to ask for what is the car's gas mileage as our last question. Just so that you know, that means gallons per, how many miles per gallon. So that's our unit rate. But let's look at what it says. Gas mileage is the number of miles you can drive on a gallon of gas. That's 1 gallon of gasoline. A test of new cars results in 370 miles on 10 gallons of gas. How far could you drive on 40 gallons of gas? Well, the 370 and 10 go together. That's our original rate. Do we have time? Nope. Do we have money? Nope. So we're going to set up our original rate exactly how it's given to us in the problem. 370 miles over 10 gallons. Let's go ahead and solve for our unit rate so we can answer that second question. I want to know how many miles can I go on 1 gallon. I'm going to have to divide this by 10. So that means I'm going to do the same thing to the top because I'm going from 10 down to 1. That means, golly, this is a heck of a car. I get 37 miles to the gallon. This would answer our second question. 37 miles to 1 gallon. That's the car's gas mileage. But let's see how far in miles can I go on 40 gallons. Well, here I'm going from 1 up to 40. I'm going to have to multiply times 40 to the top and the bottom. That means I can go 1,480 miles on 40 gallons of gas. Guys, that's how you solve these kind of word problems. I sure hope this helped.